Hello, I'm Paul Zimmy Finn, and this is the Generation Report. An excerpt from Chapter 1 of The Fourth Turning. Over the millennia, man has developed three ways of thinking about time: chaotic, cyclical, and linear. The first was the dominant view of primitive man, the second of ancient and traditional civilizations, and the third of the modern West, especially America. The great achievement of linear time has been to endow mankind with a purposeful confidence in its own self-improvement. A linear society defines explicit moral goals, justice, equality, or material goals, comfort, abundance, and then sets out deliberately to attain them. When those goals are achieved, people feel triumphant. When they aren't, new tactics are applied. Either way, the journey never repeats. Yet the great weakness of linear time is that it obliterates time's recurrence and thus cuts people off from the eternal. When we deem our social destiny entirely self-directed and our personal lives self-made, we cannot ritually join with those who come before or after us. Situating us at some intermediate moment eons away from both the beginning and the end of history, linear time leaves us alone, restless, afraid to stand still lest we discover something horrible about ourselves. From Stephanie Zacharek, Time Magazine, December 2020. My job as a film critic is to look at movies and tease out their connections both to the greater world and to our lives. If 2020 were a dystopian movie, you'd probably turn it off after 20 minutes. This year wasn't doomily thrilling like a fictional apocalypse. It was, in addition to being wrought with pain, maddeningly mundane. The routine of the everyday turned against us. Our most debilitating threat this year was a sense of helplessness, and it ran unchecked. Although it's universal among humans to believe in their own fortitude, Americans in particular are conditioned to believe they can triumph over any crisis. But not since the spread of fascism in the 1930s have we been faced with so many abnormal events. Once more from Chapter 1 of The Fourth Turning. Many Americans might prefer to think of their country as immune from nature or to think of their history as riding on such serendipities as a slim electoral margin. Yet many such supposedly external factors are linked to cyclical change. Try to unlearn the linear belief that America, or the entire modern world, is exempt from the seasonal cycles of nature. Once more from Time Magazine. After a year of so many changes, will we change radically too? Our optimism is our most ridiculous trait and our greatest. It can't always be morning in America. Sometimes we have to get through the darkest hour just before. The aurora bides its time. For many years, the dominant attitudes expressed about the fourth turning within the establishment media and throughout the online media have been incredulity and dismissiveness. Labels are quickly applied by people who haven't read the book and aren't aware of what formed the basis for it. Passages from the book are deliberately taken out of context, and the name of the book's most renowned fan continually recited, in order to fit a predetermined conclusion that its ideas are pseudoscientific, apocalyptic, or worse. These attitudes and labels persist for many reasons, but the main reason is one acknowledged in the fourth turning itself. The linear history narrative has been the dominant one in America and for such a long time that to challenge that narrative is to run against enormous reserves of cultural conditioning and personal beliefs. If a year like 2020 won't give the establishment media the impetus to consider that history might be cyclical after all, it's not clear what will. In any event, it's far easier to stick to the usual script. Recite everything that happened this year, then cast it off as a horrible aberration, and affirm, in the end, that anything can happen next. And so, the linear history narrative has been trotted out once again by Time Magazine. And Time's famous X cover, a tradition that began with the death of Adolf Hitler, has been brought back to bid good riddance to, quote-unquote, the worst year ever, complete with a year-in-review essay by a film critic. Talk about respect for history. Will the fourth turning eventually overcome the linear history narrative and achieve true mainstream recognition and acceptance? I don't know. But I hope that this time next year, Time Magazine assigns its year-in-review essay to someone who has read the book. Maybe then, its film critics can stick to reviewing films. Please tune in to the next episode. From utopia to realists, I hope. Thank you for listening, stay safe, and may God bless America.